This is Kyle Smith with Hagerty. Today I'm going to walk you through how to flare the hard lines for your classic car. Here we have the tubing flaring tool itself. And what you're looking at, there's only a couple parts to deal with, and that is the overall piece itself, a handle, and then there is 4 dies over here for various tubing sizes. Now we will be using a 3/16 tube. As you can see, this specific die is for a 3/16 line. One side is for the bubble flare, also known as ISO or DIN flare, and the other is for a double inverted 45-degree flare, which is what we'll be doing today. If you are going to flare your own brake lines, refer to your owner's manual or a shop manual to ensure that you're buying the proper size and specifications. For this specific tutorial, we will be using a 3/16 tubing to show the basic process of flaring your own brake or fuel lines. Another thing to look at is the actual dies themselves. Now this is a little bit more of a leverage type tool compared to a clamp type where you're going to select your dies that you need as you need them. This has a head that rotates around, makes it a little bit quicker, cleaner to use in the shop. Each die is specific here on the ends to the tubing size that you're going to be using. Now it's shaped for the inside of the tube and then is also cut for the flare on the outside that you'll be creating. So you have these 3 here for various sizes of creating a bubble flare. Then here on the end is what actually inverts that flare to create the double inverted 45-degree flare that we're going to be creating today. And then here are the same bubble flare dies as well as to create the inverted for a larger 5/16 and 3/8 line. The next 2 go a little bit hand in hand, and that is the tubing cutter that we're working with. And this is the same, does look familiar if you've done home improvement projects around your home. This is the same thing that plumbers use. These are just a little bit smaller for automotive use. It allows you to use it possibly on the car and allows you use all the way down to that 1/4-inch tubing size. So to partner with that tubing cutter is the tubing reamer. So this right here is going to be used to clean out the inside of that freshly cut tube to ensure there's no burrs or sharp edges that are going to interfere with the flare. So to start with flaring your hard line, be that a brake line or a fuel line, you're going to need one specific tool, and that is your flaring tool. There's multiple types of flaring tools available. This is the one I typically recommend, especially if you're doing multiple tube flares in a session or at least multiple times per year. Something like this has a lever that compresses each of these dies into the tubing, which is clamped here on the side, and we'll walk through just exactly how to operate it right now. So what you're starting with on a project like this is just some standard straight stock of a fuel line. Something like this is going to come pre-flared on both ends and the fittings already installed. So you're only going to need to cut one end and flare to fit your project. So with your hard line selected, what you're going to do is have to cut it down to size. Now on this one, you'll want to measure out on your project. Sometimes that involves bending a coat hanger to figure out exactly what length you need and then stretching it out to straight. Or if it's even just a straight line that you're going end to end, measuring it with a tape measure. For the sake of this example, I'll just be cutting it right about here, as I don't have a specific project in mind when I'm bending this. So to start with using a tubing cutter, you'll set the line inside of it and then tighten it down until the cutting wheel makes contact with the hard line that you're bending. So we'll bring that in just close there and just to snug. And then what we'll do is spin that around a couple times until it's loose again and free spinning, and then tighten it again. And I usually do 1/4 to 1/2 turn at a time, so it's not a significant increase in pressure. And that just makes sure that you're not deforming the tube as you tighten that down, because you want to make sure that it stays in a nice round shape. Always feels like it takes a little bit longer than it needs to. So there you have the cut end, and you can see that I haven't deformed how round the tube is. So still nice and round. So you can see here on the inside of this tubing there's just a few small burrs and a little bit of metal left over that the cutter had pushed into the interior of the tube, and that's where our reamer comes into play. Now what this does is that's going to remove all of those bits of metal left over and leave us with a smooth surface. So when we flare, we're not moving any metal around or creating any hot spots of metal. The reamer is pretty simple to use. You just insert that into the tube and rotate it around a few times. You don't want to remove too much metal, so you just want to give it a couple spins, and you can see there it cleans it up and makes sure that you don't have any extra metal in there. After you clean off all the burrs and metal shavings, make sure to blow out the line to remove any debris. So our first step in dealing with our tubing flaring tool is actually not even involving the tool. And this is the one that I often forget, especially if I'm a little bit out of practice. And that is whatever piece you're about to mount in there needs to have the fitting on it first. The first time you flare, you will forget this and you'll have to cut your beautiful flare off and put that piece back on. So make sure you slide it on the piece that you're doing right now. With that in mind, set it off to the side and we'll open up the vise. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually place the tubing in the two dies that we're working with. Now these are tubing size specific, and you can see that it has a channel for the tubing to lay into, and then also a small flare here on the end for the press and the dies to punch up against. So in loading this into the dies, what I like to do is leave it just a little bit past the die, and then place the top piece on. Hold it here at the back. And then what I'll do is lightly clamp it in place. So I'll back that off just a little bit. You can see this is still loose. I'm still able to move the line back and forth. And then this has the position 0 on it. And what that is that's flat on the front. When I bring this in, it's going to push the line back right up until it's flush with the end of these dies. And that's exactly where it needs to be so we get an accurate flare every time. Our next step is just to go ahead and clamp this down, nice and tight, and then we're ready to flare. So now that we've got the dies lined up and the tubing in the correct spot, we're going to go ahead and rotate our dies to position number 1 for the 3/16 line that we're using. This is going to start the flare for us and is just the first of 2 steps. Go ahead and swing this through and pull it all the way down. And then the next step here is the second. And we'll go ahead and pull that one in. And then we can take it out. Split our dies. And there you can see what is considered a 45-degree double inverted flare. And now you can see how nicely it fits here in the end of the fitting. And that would be the actual sealing surface. Now it is something to keep in mind. This is something I often see on classic cars, or something that might have a fuel leak, or sometimes even a leak at a wheel cylinder. A lot of people will come through and put pipe dope or plumber's tape or Teflon tape on the threads of this fitting in an effort to seal up that leaky fitting. That's not what's actually sealing that fitting. These threads should not function as a seal. This actual flare is the seal that you're working with. So coming through and working on these threads and trying to seal that up is only a band-aid to the actual problem that is a bad flare. So if you're having problems with a flared fitting, if it's not sealing properly, you need to look at the flare, make sure it's clean and fresh, and also the fitting that it's threading into. And there you have a double flare with the fitting ready to seal off that brake or fuel system in your classic car.